So now we pick up, I think, where we were supposed to leave off. With Skarloey now back in good order, he's been enjoying his run along the lines. The reason for this was due to Rusty, the new diesel, maintaining the track quality and mending the issues. He found it so fun he almost forgot it was his line to begin with. Right now, I'm just soaking up all the views. However, I am a bit confused over that theme use. I did mention how a variety of music would be appreciated, but that doesn't mean using Thomas's anthem. It's still a great theme, but it's the wrong placement. I'll take my comment back, thank you very much. Please revert to the Skarloey Railway theme. Thankfully, that cue finished once Skarloey found Rusty.
You've done wonders with these rails. Rusty laughed. I'm glad you're pleased. Manager said let's mend the track so well that he won't know where he is. And we did. And you didn't, if you take my meaning.
Rusty truly is a powerhouse diesel, as much as he is a short stack to the standard gauge engines. He has a proven record of getting things done. I wonder why his mentality is the opposite to that of the other antagonistic type diesels. Who did he learn his goods and bads from? On their way over, Rusty warned Skarloey of one section of track that still needed repairs.
An engine might come off there, particularly Duncan. He will rock and roll along the line. Look at him right now. I hope he doesn't hurt his passengers. What's that about me?
Not the smartest of ideas, Rusty. Duncan is not the engine you want to start a quarrel with. After all, nobody tops Duncan, according to Duncan. Thankfully, Rusty didn't stay quiet and informed the yellow narrow gauger of the fault in the line. Kind of like that weird lump of track he just came over. Duncan, however, felt Rusty was being silly and didn't think a diesel should be telling him what to do. He then later complained to James about the whole ordeal.
You're late, he snapped. I know, said Duncan. It's that smelly diesel's fault. You poor engine, sympathized James. I know all about diesels. One crept into our yard and ordered us about. I soon sent him packing. Duncan was filled with admiration.
Oh, but of course Duncan isn't going to question James, one of the drama queens of Sodor who overblows every story just to make himself look better. And with that, Duncan was all for Rusty being sent away. This is good only because it now clears up in the other story why Duncan didn't like Rusty. However, the order of this is off. Skarloey is obviously aware of Duncan by now, but it was already stated that Duncan didn't like Rusty. It's like both this and the other episode have half of each script. As Duncan got closer to Krosnokern Station, the ride got more wiggly.
Steady, boy, checked his driver. But it was too late. Sleepers and ballast, I'm off.
I can see why. Look at that line he just ran on. There are so many nicks and kinks in there, it's ridiculous that any engine could have stayed on those rails properly. Even so, Duncan should not have been acting so bouncy. Once word got out that Duncan was off the rails again, Rusty refused to help. That is until Skarloey mentioned to him it wasn't about Duncan, but the passengers. Without them, there is no railway. Meanwhile, Duncan was dumping.
Duncan stood sad and solitary. He couldn't rock and roll now. Oh dear, he thought. Everyone will know how silly I am. The passengers had to get out and help too. They weren't very pleased about that.
More manual labor for the passengers? Well, after having to do that, I would never return to such a line. I've taken trains before, but never had to help the workmen do something like that. This is about as ridiculous as trying to move Henry out of the tunnel by tugging on a rope. However, the difference was that these folks were able to put Duncan back on the rails. Hopefully for the last time today.
At last, evening came. Rusty, he whispered, thank you for helping. I'm sorry I was rude to you. That's all right, Duncan. I wish all diesels were like you. Let's be friends. Suits me, replied Rusty. We'll mend that bad bit of rail first thing tomorrow.
Ah, Rusty. That was nice of him to do, as much as Duncan was a funnel crapper to him. The play out to this story was fine. I have no problem with the character interactions and such. It's the timing that's off to me. Both this episode and Home at Last share parts of each story and make it confusing as to what events happen first. Home at Last sounded like Duncan and Rusty were at odds, but only this was explained in this story. Yet Top Hat said in the other story if Duncan bounces off the rails again, his funnel's getting downsized. And yet Top Hat was nowhere to be found here, so where's the continuity? Well, it's not a horrible problem, but it's lacking a bit in linear storytelling. But then again, that's been plaguing all of Season 4 so far. Aside from that, I was pleased. Seeing Rusty having a little more explained about what he's been doing and getting recognized for that is good writing. Even Duncan, who is unfortunately not the most likable at first, does show humility in the end. He's just lucky Rusty didn't blow his noxious gas his way. Pictorial elements to the entry were well laid out. Places like Rheneas' Viaduct, the Mountain Road, and the Sodor Castle Causeway are all shown. The focal points to the story were Croven's Gate and Krosnokern Station, where Duncan derails. As for music, we get 3 main themes. The first was Thomas's anthem at the beginning, Duncan's through most of the middle, and then finally the Skarloey Railway theme at the very end. All fun tunes. Next episode is Special Funnel. Thanks for watching.